Okay, welcome. This is Mutator Monday. What we're looking at is the pie rule. I'm going to post a link below. I've done a number of things with the pie rule before. The Marquesi method, limited Dutch offer. I'll post a link to my prior videos in that. I want to discuss a bit of the pie rule and go into ClaudeSoucie, which was designed by Donald Silberger. The story behind the game, actually, let me explain a little bit about the pie rule. The pie rule is probably the most common universal mutator that you would have in games. It's seen itself all over. According to Wikipedia, the turn of the 20th century, it was first reported to be used with the Mancala family. And among modern games like Hex, it's used. Tournament players use it. It's also, the pie rule is supposed by the swap rule. Pretty much, one person, what it is, the one person will do their first move. And after that, the second player decides whether they accept that move and want to use it, or if they do, then they will actually let the person have it and do it, or they can say that they are the first player. They will swap. Anyhow, pardon the confusion here. It's just pretty much it's set up. Donald's game here, Mr. Silberger's game, which is a take on lines of action, and according to the history of the game, his inventing of it, he pretty much ran across. He got a version of lines of action, didn't know it was lines of action, and came up with his own tweaks, which you will see here. Now let's go a little bit into it and how we use the pie rule, and then I'll explain how to play. As with lines of action, you're trying to get all the pieces to connect one group vertically, horizontally, or diagonally. They can connect and create a path. So if you imagine these pieces were black, that would be a win. But there are some rules that you have here that are a little bit different with it, but you will see them that you have here. First thing to do is object is to get the group connected. As I said, imagine these are black pieces, they would connect. Same thing with red pieces are there. One of the difference is that, and then we'll get into the pie rule, but I want to get out of the way here. I mean, how the pie rule is played. First thing I'm going to do is players alternate turns moving, and the pieces move as far as there's a number of pieces in line. For example, this piece has two pieces in line, wants to move this way, so it's 1, 2. Okay. This one ends up moving 1, 2 that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that there. No pieces can move through friendly pieces. However, let's say I do the 1, 2, actually, you know, we'll do the following. I'm going to show you another rule here. You can go like 1, 2. Another thing you'll see different with ClaudeSoucie, if you see that right there, what I did, that piece is now stacked on top. They're not captured. Mr. Silberger does this for aesthetic reasons. So now, if you remember that, we have 6 pieces, 2, 3. You're not allowed to pass through a piece that is controlled through an opponent, but you can pass through your own. In addition, on the win, let's go back to a win here. You also, another thing you have is, remember the win condition? Let's say the final move. Let's say, for example, we had this here like this. Remember we're showing the win condition? In lines of action, that win condition happens immediately. But here, it would happen at the start of the turn. Let's say, for example, he comes in here and does that. He doesn't win immediately. This is another difference Donald has between lines of action and this. What you have here comes up, and now you have one group. If you could somehow counter it, he comes over that way. He manages to, remember the 2 in the line? Manages to stop it, and therefore he doesn't have a win. In addition, as with lines of action, you could win your game if somebody manages to trap your last piece. Let's say, for example. And we're going to get this set up shortly here. Let me just get the pieces off the board. Be careful. I'll make sure that the board's set up right. Oh, good. We got to twist it a bit. We're going to have the group here, for example. And we're down like that there. So let's take a number of pieces off. I'm going to be going into another thing, setting up with a pie roll applies here. In this here, take it off. Actually, yeah, we can do it that way. This is some reason of positions like this. Okay. Let's say they were stacked underneath. I just took them off the board, simplified. Remember, the stack goes on top. And size of the stack doesn't matter anyhow. He goes like this. Black does that. Remember, it's at the start of a turn, so you could even do this. Black does this. You form a single group with pieces here, which you win at the start of turn. However, now it's red's turn. Red wins again because you reduced the single piece. So there was a major ones here. Another thing Donald says, you can play this on a larger board and smaller board. You need to cover the number of pieces equal to, you don't put them in the corner, but equal to this here. Let me show you one of the diagrams he has so I can show you an example of a smaller board and we'll get into it. You see here on his setup for ClaudeSoucie, you'll see it here. If you see that, you can play on a smaller board. He also has different setup. Now, here's one of the big differences here, and this is where we get into the pie roll. In ClaudeSoucie, again, you have 12 pieces. But what it was is we're going to do a version of pie roll. It's not quite the Metaism method because there was the option for the player to roll out. But you could do the standard, if you saw that opening, where you had pieces together like black here, red. You can do what's called the scrambled egg position, which is observed. Like this, like that. Here like this. And it's called scrambled eggs. I think Donald, let me go through the rules. What does he call it? He calls it the William Glenn Whitley setup. Whitley setup. So we have a setup like this here. And actually, sorry about that. That's not right. It always alternates. And you saw two of them on the cover thumb for this video, or two. The regular lines action setup, which we had. This is another one. The setup player picks one. You can decide here, and I'm a little bit unclear about Donald what he had in the rules, but what you do here is we have this. And if you see they go around, they alternate like that. You also had a smaller configuration. Or you can do, he calls it random. So you can pick a lines action setup. You can put some restraints on this. You do a random setup. So I could just shuffle, let's do this here. And you could just, like that. The thing about that setup thing here, and just give me a few seconds, I just want to clarify a bit in the rules what he did here. What it was is that one person sets up and the other person accepts it by moving a piece. And what they'll do here is they'll pick either color. This is my understanding from the rules. You pick either color and do your lines of action that way. So he has an increased variety. So I could choose to do the classic 2. And this one here is, let's say he picks black, goes first, and nope, it's on top. You can also, the first player sets up, the other person can then decline. And I'm a bit unclear on the rules what Donald had there. I would say limit this somehow. And this is why it's not quite the Metaism method. One person sets up and he goes, I don't like it. The first person sets up then can reset up the board a different way. And you do, and he has a chance to accept it or reject it. If you're going to have players who's very obstinate in regards to this, you're going to have to work out some way. I recommend capping it off. And capping off the number of times that you're going to do. So anyhow, remember the idea is to get the pieces connected, just like in lines action. At the start of your turn, you manage to begin the game with your pieces in a configuration like this. So let's say we're down to 3. And they should be on. Let's do a few of these just to have things here. I think Donald likes his aesthetics, which definitely has something else here. It gives it its own flavor. Do it that way. Anyhow, you know they're stacked underneath like that. So, red could go here. Then, red would win next turn, but then black decides, what was that? It was here. So red comes in like that. Okay. Comes in like that. Now black would go. That. Taking these off again, just to remind you one more time that they're supposed to go underneath, stack like that here. Now red can go. Oh, red won. See, red did that, red won the game. So that's how to play ClaudeSoucie. Donald Silberg, apparently, I read his bio he had in his rule set. This is what he actually gave me a while ago. And I had it. There's actually his rules. One thing I'll show you about the rules that he did here, copyright 2011, is he's very immensely mathematical in his rules. But there was one thing I didn't quite get an answer from him on, and I decided to proceed to do this anyway. That he actually met ClaudeSoucie and showed it to him. And in honor of him, that's the maker of the original one's action, he named the game after him. Anyhow, I do want to thank you for watching. Got some other stuff coming up this week. Again, thank you for watching me, your die. Always roll 5.